This is the Holy Gospel according to St. John, the 21st chapter. After he appeared to his followers in Jerusalem, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. And he showed himself in this way. Gathered there together were Simon Peter, Thomas, called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two other of his disciples. Simon Peter said to them, "I'm going fishing." They said to him, "We'll go with you." They went out and got in the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Just after daybreak, Jesus stood on the beach, but the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to them, "Children, you have no fish, have you?" They answered him, "No." He said to them, "Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you'll find some." So they cast it. And now they were not able to haul it in because there were so many fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It's the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on some clothes, for he was naked, and jumped into the sea. But the other disciples came in the boat, dragged the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, only about 100 yards off. When they had gone ashore, they saw a charcoal fire there, with fish on it, and bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you've just caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153 of them, and thought that there were so many. And though there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." Now none of the disciples dared to ask him, "Who are you?" because they knew that it was the Lord. Jesus came and took bread and gave it to them. And he did the same with the fish. Now this was the third time that Jesus appeared to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." A second time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Simon said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him a third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter felt hurt because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Very truly, I tell you, when you were younger, you used to fasten your own belt and go wherever you wished. But when you grow old, you'll stretch out your hands and someone else will fasten a belt around you and will take you where you do not wish to go." He said this to indicate the kind of death by which he would glorify God. After he said to them, "Follow me." This is the gospel of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
God's grace, mercy, and peace be over this day. Through Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen. Room at the table. In our intensely Catholic home in Indiana, angels were members of our family. My Italian grandmother used to set an extra place for our guardian angel on feast days. On our birthdays, we 6 children set our own place. Grandma said it was our way to thank the angel and ask for help in the coming year. I mean, we really believed in angels. In school, the nuns taught us about them. At Mass, we let the guardian angel into the pews first. One of the earliest prayers I had learned was, "Angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom God's love entrusts me here, ever this day be at my side, to lead and guard, to light and guide. Amen." Otherwise, my childhood was pretty ordinary, until I was 14. That year, my favorite brother, Frank, who was 8, began to tire and bruise easily. To cheer him up, I taught him how to ride my bike. Before long, though, he couldn't even push the pedals and was in the hospital room more often than not. I didn't know it at the time, but he had leukemia. One day, my parents came home from the hospital crying. The parish priest who was with them told us that Frank's angel had taken him to heaven. I was so sick at heart that I just cried and cried. Our grandmother was so distressed that she forgot her English and reverted to Italian. As soon as I dried my tears, a terrible anger began to grow in me, like a piece of metal turning red and orange and yellow and finally white hot. Why didn't my parents tell me Frank was going to die? I silently screamed.
How could his angel have allowed this? I hated Frank's angel. What a stupid thing to believe in. My anger didn't go away. That summer I lashed out at everyone and even lost my best friend after beating him up. My father got me a punching bag, which I demolished in a week. When my grandmother tried to tell me about angels, I turned away. When my birthday came that fall, I did not set an extra place for my guardian angel. Frank's death triggered an uncontrollable rage in me against anything that failed to reach perfection. I became obsessed with achieving all that I could as fast as possible. In high school, I took out my aggression in football and wrestling and became the best athlete on each of these teams. I studied just as compulsively, graduating third in my class with a scholarship to the state university. I got a summer job in sales, and working 7 days a week, I worked morning from morning till night. Then I met Marie. She came to the door to hear my passionate spiel about the gadgets I was selling, and as soon as I looked into her pretty round face and big brown eyes, I was in love. I proposed to her on the spot. She laughed, but 2 years later we were married. With marriage and school and a part-time job, my pent-up energy found a positive outlet. After college, though, my anger continued to burn. I worked for an import-export business and literally lived in my office for days on end. When I came home, I was too tired to pay attention to Marie and our 3 children. By the time I was 30, I was vice president. One Easter weekend, Marie came into the den where I was working late. Jack, I'm leaving you. I think I want a divorce. She explained that our marriage was a disaster with a husband who shut her out of his life entirely. I've already taken the kids to mother's, and I'm going to join them. It's up to you whether we come back. Then she walked out of the house. I was so shocked I couldn't speak. It was like my brother dying all over again. And once more, I didn't know until it was too late. I started opening cabinets and smashing everything in sight against the wall. How could she do this to me? I raged as bottles and utensils went flying. The final cabinet had a stack of dishes I had used as a child. The sight of them brought back memories of my brother that made me want to cry. I set them on the kitchen table, and one by one threw them at the sink. But then I came to the last dish, and I couldn't pick it up. It was as though it was stuck to the table. I used both hands, but strangely, I still couldn't pry it from the table. I stood there panting and sweating, my hands bleeding from a drinking glass I'd smashed. Suddenly, I heard a voice echo around me. Jack, make room for me at the table. It was kind and compassionate, and sounded like a female voice, yet I felt a shiver of fear run through me. I sat down and cried until my head pounded and I couldn't cry anymore. When I finally got up to wash my face, I noticed the kitchen was in shambles. As I looked at that one remaining dinner plate, I heard the voice again. The most beautiful voice, like a soprano singing softly. Who are you? I gasped. You know me, Jack, replied. Make room for me at your table. Numb as I felt, I finally knew whose voice it was. This time I was able to pick up the plate without any problem, and I set it at the end where I usually sat. I placed a knife, a fork, and spoon around it, added a napkin, and an aluminum drinking cup that had survived my rage, and pushed a chair in place. As I sat looking at the place setting, I felt the most incredible peace I had ever known. Then I bowed my head and said the prayer that I had learned with my brother. Angel of God, my guardian dear. When I finished, I talked nonstop to the angel about my life for a good hour. I can't pretend that I saw her across the table, but I felt my angel's presence just as I had heard her speak to me. And she was telling me now that my anger was gone. I could finally change my life. The sky was beginning to lighten when I heard the sound of the key in the lock. It was Marie. She surveyed the kitchen in horror. Then she threw her arms around me. I couldn't sleep, she cried. It was as if I heard a voice saying over and over, Jack needs you, Marie, so I came. Marie washed and bandaged my hands, then put me to bed without saying another word. Marie spent hours cleaning up before I woke. As I started to apologize, she shook her head. Just tell me, she said, why do you break everything in the kitchen and then go to the trouble of setting the table? When I finished my story, she looked thoughtful. Somehow you are different, Jack, she commented. It's as though all of the tension is gone. Marie, I hope this doesn't seem silly, I began, but I want to keep that place setting on the table forever. If my angel hadn't come last night, I don't know what I might have done. I want to keep reminding myself of something I knew when I was a kid, but forgot. That strange night was 2 decades ago, but its effects have stayed with me. Marie and I shortly thereafter took our first vacation since our honeymoon and began to rebuild our marriage. Since then, we've celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary. Our 3 children now have families of their own, so we have 6 grandchildren on earth, and 1 waiting for us in heaven. I left my job to start my own business and found pleasure instead of compulsion in my work again. And each night, I still set out the old plate and dented aluminum cup, the silverware, and the napkin. They're a pledge to my guardian angel and to God who sent her, that she will always be welcome at my table. Sometimes we hold on to things, especially anger. That we have that moment when things don't go like we expected or like we wanted, where we're hurt, heartbroken. And it can be so hard to let go of those feelings. In our grief, in our disappointment, in our hurt, in our rage, we can walk away from those very things that we treasured. Things that brought us joy and life. You can realize that you closed off a part of yourself, because that's what grief does. It goes into protection mode. Maybe you just walk away altogether and never look back. You know, I never really understood this gospel lesson. It's a strange lesson, because I'm thinking these are the very disciples that dropped everything, that walked away from their lives to follow Jesus in the first place. For 3 years, they've been walking around with him. They left their families, they left their homes, they left their occupations, all of their responsibilities behind to follow Jesus. And day in and day out, they're hearing his teachings. They're watching his miracles. They're seeing him cast out demons, calming storms. They're seeing all this amazing stuff. Then last week we heard about after his crucifixion, they were so scared that they were in this locked room for a full week. They were so heartbroken. They were so distressed. They were so locked up in their grief that they literally couldn't move. They were in a foreign city, a foreign town. They were in Jerusalem, locked in that room, not sure what to do next. That's how deeply they felt for the Messiah, how deep their grief ran. And where do we see him next? In a fishing boat? That's why this has always seemed such a strange lesson to me. It's almost as though they wanted to turn back the clock. They didn't know what to do or where to go, so let's pretend it never really happened. We'll just go back to fishing. Go back to the old ways. That was all just a strange dream. Too terrible and too good all at the same time. But I think something that might explain this lesson would be that grief, that hurt that they felt, that drove them to make such a strange decision, to just go back to fishing. I guess they kind of wondered, what else do we do? That's what we know. So they're back in the boat. And I realize I'm reading in a little bit here, but as I'm hearing this lesson, as I see this, I can't help but imagine Peter in that boat. More bleepity bleeping empty nets. He is a fisherman after all. And this is church, gotta keep it clean. I can't bleep and believe this. Nothing ever goes right. You can just imagine how frustrated, how angry he is. He's throwing his nets, he's throwing the oars, he's throwing his baggage around the boat. Mad as can be. Not mad at the fish. Not even mad at the morning and the lack of fish. But there's so much more beneath that. And then there's God. On the shore, doing what God does, unfazed by the drama. Calmly inviting him back to goodness. Try the other side of the boat. Just give it a try. Calmly inviting him back. And I think this lesson isn't so much about fish, but about blessing. A blessing that he could relate to in that moment, that he could understand, that he could feel. And God saying, I know you're hurt, but I'm still here with you. I know how deep that grief goes. I understand why you did what you did, why you're here, back in your boat. But that wasn't your last chance of joy. I'm still here. Besides, I need your help. In thinking about other people, I promise you, you'll find what you've been looking for. So get out of your own head. Look around. Feed my sheep. Take care of somebody. Do something nice for somebody else. And I promise you that you will find what you think you lost. The season of Easter and the new life that Easter promises doesn't just have to come at the end of your life. The new life of Easter can start today. When you take a look at that baggage, those things you've been carrying around, and ask yourself, do I really need to keep carrying this? Listen for that voice. That gentle voice inviting you back. That voice inviting you to goodness. Inviting you back to the path that you think you could never get back to. Feed some sheep. Do something nice for someone else. Recognize those around you and what their needs might be, and do your part to participate in healing. And be a part of the Easter life.